Hey everyone, this is George Couros. Welcome back to week 2 of the highlights from 2024 from the Innovator's Mindset podcast. Great guests. So it's time to revisit. As I shared with you last week on Thursday, I wanted to highlight some of the great guests, revisit some of their thinking, but also highlight some of the quotes that I shared at the beginning of the year on the 2024 quotes from the year. I always do a quotes to start off your year. And I wanted to share why they matter. So you can check out that podcast as well. But this is a quote that I don't know the author, but this is one of probably my favorite quotes. And I've actually referenced it. I didn't know who originally wrote it, but I've referenced it several times. And it doesn't just matter to me, but really matters to me. It matters to me as a person, but also as a dad. And it is this one. The key to happiness is always having something to look forward to. And I really think about this, that a lot of things that really have brought me joy are things that they're experiences that I'm going to have, or sometimes events I'm going to speak at. But I also notice with my kids that little plans of like, hey, we're going to do this thing, or my daughter is really excited about going to the basketball game. Having those things or like having big experiences really, really matters. And thinking about this in your year, like what is something you're looking forward to? And it's always making sure you have that next thing that you're looking forward to. And maybe that's a terrible way to live life. I think there's a value in really being present in the moment, but also, working towards something. And the reason I kind of looked at these quotes and how I thought about them when I first shared them is different than how I might think about them now. And I think it's because of like stuff I've been going through. I went through this space where I've lost a lot of weight several years ago, and I had like a goal weight. Now I'm very proud because I've actually stayed relatively in that range for the last, I think, 3 or 4 years. So it's been a while. This is actually like I've lost weight before. It kind of comes back quick. So I'm like typically within 5 to 10 pounds of what my initial goal was years ago. And every single week I was striving toward that goal. I was trying to lose 2 pounds per week on average. And sometimes it hit 1, sometimes it hit 3, sometimes it hit 4, sometimes it hit 0. But it was pretty consistent, and kind of striving for that goal always kind of, made me move towards something. At the beginning of 2024, I had a goal of running the Disney Marathon. And I ran that. I got hurt a little bit before, and so I didn't necessarily do the time I want to do, but really the goal was to run the marathon. It wasn't to break a record or do anything, that was going to shock the world, but just to do it because I wanted to do it before I turned 50, which is going to be happening in 2025. And so I've done that. And every single week I had a plan, what I was going to do, doing long runs. And then I did the marathon. And there's something about when you run for races, and I've done them before, way, way, way before. And it's actually called runner's depression. And the thing with runner's depression is that you work towards a goal, you work towards something, and basically you kind of wake up thinking about that thing, and you kind of plan your day around it. You do these things, and then all of a sudden you do it and it's done, and then you kind of feel a little purposeless. And I knew that was going to come. And so this last year, I really severely hurt myself running. And I have professional goals, but there's always something personal I want to really kind of push myself towards. So I've been struggling this year, and I don't think this is shocking to anyone that consistently listens to this podcast, which is, hi, Mom. Mrs. Basement. Not, she probably doesn't listen to it. But the thing that I knew and I kind of wanted to work my way through it was just kind of like exercising for the sake of exercising. And I'll tell you, it's been tough. It's been tough. I kind of feel purposeless. Like sometimes I'm more motivated than others, but I feel I'm just doing it to do it. But I don't really have anything I'm trying to achieve, to strive for. And I know that, you read James Clear, Atomic Habits. He talks about the importance of habits, obviously, and that consistency. And sometimes the goal helps you build the habits. If you're so focused on the goal, but you don't build the habits, you'll never get to the goal. But he also does talk about the importance of, having something to strive toward, right? And you might not always hit it, but developing the habits of that process. I think the habits really, really matter. And I understand that, but having something to strive for really, really matters. So this quote, the key to happiness is always to have something to look forward to. I also think about is some of that happiness, not just having something to look forward to, but something to strive toward. And realizing that sometimes, I wanted to run a faster race, but I didn't. But running the race, I became better through that process. But I had something that I was getting up for each day. So I want you to think about, as the year is here, as the new year is coming on, what's that goal? What's that goal you want to achieve? What's that personal thing that you would love to do this year? Because I think having something to kind of get you up every single day, a little side note, having dogs, I lost 2 dogs this year, really, really tough. Suggs, new dog in my life. I'll tell you, he's really helped me because every morning I got to get up. There's something about that when something pulls you, whether it's a goal, whether it's a dog, pulls you to get up each day. I think it makes you better. So I just want to share that with you. One of my favorite quotes from the year. But if you didn't like that, I promise you something good's on the other side of this intro. Welcome back to another episode of the Innovator's Mindset Podcast. Why did you feel the need to write this book? Like what problem do you feel this is solving for, principles specifically in your writing?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to use one of your words you just said, George. I love that you said thoughtful, because a lot of thought went into this book. And I think I want to be incredibly transparent and say, this has been a labor of love for almost 10 years. I'm not going to lie. Like, I knew that I am an educator who believes in the power of positivity. And you and I talked about the difference between positivity and toxic positivity, right? But I know that I come to the table with that mindset of, like, I'm here to support all students. I'm here to support all the adults too. And at a very, very early on in my career, it's like, I want to write a book about just good things. Like, what are all the good things we can do to help one another? That at the end of the day, I know are going to help our students. So very thoughtful in the sense that over the last several years, Dottie Hall, who was one of my professors in our principalship program, we would meet together regularly, and she wanted to write a book. I wanted to write a book. We're like, let's do it together. Let's put something together. Let's put something out there. And we met. This was maybe just like 2 or 3 years in. And we're just like, what is the reason? Like, why do we want to do this? And it's because we wanted to provide administrators like that glimmer of hope. Like, no matter where we are, no matter what time of period we're in, there's still good out there, and we still have a really big job of educating all our kids. And I think that what we said, we would say, like, we want a little shot in the arm. Like, you're doing what you need to be doing. Here's some very tangible ideas, some things that you can implement tomorrow based off reading this book. And we want you to feel good about it. We want you to enjoy your job and find that joy. And I think for me, after writing this now, as a principal during the pandemic, that relevancy is understanding what crisis is and knowing that we just can't stay away from it. It's going to happen. It's bound to happen. But when you put some of these systems in place, you're going to be able to get your staff through those moments together, get to the other side, not just like I don't believe in the notion of just like we're just surviving. I want to be thriving as well.
That,
right. And so that's important.
The thing that you said, and it was like kind of a little light bulb for me, is when you say what's the symbol? I'm gonna see how accurate this is. What is the symbol you think of when you think of positive? What's the first symbol?
I'm gonna go with plus sign.
Plus sign, right? And when you think of negative, you think of
the minus sign.
Right. So a plus sign for me is about, I think this is the way both you and I see it, is about forward, right? It's not about, I think even optimism and positivity, optimism is like a hope that things get better. Positivity for me is about an action to make things better. And so when you say that terminology, it is actually about finding ways, as you just beautifully articulated, not to just like make it through the day, but really to make this an incredible experience, not only for your staff and your students, but for yourself. Like I will tell you, as a principal is my favorite job ever in education. I love being a principal, and it wasn't because it was super easy, right?
Right.
I think it was last year, probably about a year and a half ago. I had texted you and I said, what do I need to do to put in a proposal for a book? And you said, are you ready? And I said, I'm ready. I'm writing. I have this idea that I'm putting together. He's like, okay, you do your table of contents, your intro, your first chapter. And I was at it. I was like, okay. I was looking at all my material, all my content. And I was like, what direction do I want to go in? Because I had a lot of content. And I was just trying to think about how to best thread it all together to weave a beautiful story. Because I really feel like that our lives are like these collections of stories, and those stories can really positively impact others. So what's the story? What's the narrative I want to tell here? And so I was really, in thinking about this, I've been inspired by a lot of leaders and a lot of people, and I've used a lot of these interactions as guides on my path. And that's a lot about what I write about. And a lot of these people I surround myself with happen to be women, but also others as well. And I thought about, well, wouldn't it be great to have this book where I can not only share my path to leadership, people who have recognized leadership qualities within me from the time I was a very little girl till now, but also I'm very big on amplifying other people's voices and elevating other people's gifts, because we're better together. Collectively, we are better. And so I brought in some voices, all of who I know. So I have Lainey Rowell, I have Stephanie Rothstein, I have my 4th grade teacher, Linda Roth, who still is a mentor to me to this day. And I think that's a pretty cool aspect of this book, that my 4th grade teacher is writing in it with me, Natasha Nurse, and Megan Lawson. So all of these people are fantastic educators, fantastic writers and thinkers and thought leaders. And that was important to me. And I know you've done that in a lot of your books, George. I know because of the teacher was a big inspiration for that concept for me to be able to do this. And now your book, What Makes a Great Principal, actually reminds me a lot of this. Because I think it's nice when you're reading a book to, you have my voice, you have the author's voice, but now let's hear this idea from someone else. And maybe it could be a little bit different. Maybe they've taken a different entry point to this idea, and then back to another voice. I think it keeps it interesting and engaging. There's something about that I really, really like. I like the spirit of that. So anyway, the book really came together because I was blogging about my path to leadership. I was blogging a lot about, and by the way, the first part of the book is all about the path to the leader inside. All of these people who serve as signposts along your journey. They're kind of lanterns that guide you. Even interactions along the way that you might have considered unfavorable, those are important interactions too, because they tell you who you want to be and who you don't want to be.
One of the things that I've been watching and saw it's really fascinating is that your school district shifted, and you told me this before, it's piloting right now for a few years to a 4-day work week. And I knew about this. By the way, and I asked you to write, I sent you some questions you wrote on my blog, and then I got all these comments about how awesome you are. So good for you.
That's so nice.
Right. Which is always nice. Like, when I see people on social media and they like say, oh, I'm moving on from my job, and all the people congratulating them don't work in their district, but nobody in their district congratulates them. I'm like, oh, that's not. Because I look at that stuff, right? And so I saw, people from your districts just saying how wonderful a leader you are, which is really, really nice. And, I'm sure I don't get any, like, this is how I am on TikTok, but I'm totally different, other than me being, starstruck when I saw you, a little celebrity sighting. Um, Tell us about the shift to the 4-day work week. Like, why did you do it, and like, what are you seeing so far with this? Because I know a lot of people are interested. Because it's not like you just like, hey everyone, guess what? You got Fridays off. It's not that
Yeah.
easy, right? So just talk about that.
So during the pandemic, when we had the, roomies and zoomies, teachers kind of doing both things, we,
I've never heard that. Why?
roomies and
That was,
zoomies.
isn't that
Mhm.
like dog treats, like
Yeah,
roomies and zoomies?
yeah,
Isn't that a zoomie like a dog treat or something like
yeah, like a dog toothbrush or
that? Okay,
something.
all right, all
Maybe
right.
you could get a sponsorship or something. So, so it was, we had that, and we came back. I mean, teachers were just, this was a totally, unnerving experience. And I don't want to like drag anyone back to that time. But so we thought, like, what can we do to make things better, to give people time for planning? And we tried to separate and have virtual teachers and in-person teachers, but some were doing both. And
Mhm.
so we went to our community and said, would you be willing to let us release a half day early on Fridays to give our teachers more time to plan for the next week? And the community said, yes, absolutely. And so we did that, half day,
Mhm.
half day. As we came out and just started seeing like the great resignation and people leaving, and then getting to a point where in Texas, almost 30% of, new hires not certified. And we know that, the over half the teachers and leave within their first 5 years of the profession. So we have a system that isn't working, and trying to get to like, why is that? Anyway, so we started talking with our staff about what we could do to attract and retain teachers, because we have historically, our communities had very high teacher turnover, and high teacher turnover means worse outcomes for kids, because you can't move the needle. You can't get traction about things you want to be doing unless you have a team that comes
Yeah.
and builds sustainability, right? So one of the ideas that we kept coming back around to is, we're limited on what we can do with pay. That's set by the legislature. So without some kind of, funding increase from the state, that's not on the table. And so one thing we can work with is time, because in Texas, you have to have 75,600 minutes, but
Mhm.
there's no guidance on how those minutes are structured.
Right.
And so we started kind of with the idea of what would it be if we went to a 4-day instructional week. Maybe our days are a little bit longer, but then that Friday, which is the day we chose to be our off day, is really truly off. And we started surveying our community. We had a team of people from all over our district, special education, fine arts, athletics. I mean, it is Texas, right?
Mhm.
And so all of the academic leadership really thinking through, what could this look like, and what would it mean for us, with the sole goal to recruit and retain teachers, knowing that we can't move the needle for kids until we do that. So anyway, that was the why.
Mhm.
And so this was our first year. We took about 18 months to really think through, roll out, survey, build understanding about it with our community and board. And then this was our first year to roll it out. And so it's been really exciting. And I'm exciting as we're starting the hiring season for next year
Right.
about what it looks like our retention is. We're seeing gains in our academics, decrease in our discipline data, increased attendance. Um,
Hmm.
so right now, and we're going to be tracking those things. This is a pilot our board committed to for 3 years, and to see what the outcomes look like over those 3 years. And then, but right now, if everything keeps trending like it is, I think we'll be continuing. And I think it's given people like work-life balance, autonomy over their schedule. We've got a lot of people up here on Fridays, but it's like, I'm going up at 10 with no makeup on and my hair in a ball cap and taking care of what I need to do. So then I still have the rest of the weekend with my
Right.
family. Yeah.
Mm. So there's something I shared years ago. It's risk is moving from a comfortable average in pursuit of an unknown better.
Mm.
And I guarantee that I'm sure you heard this, and I know other people will hear this as well. This won't work, or this wouldn't work if you do this. Well, what we're currently doing is not working.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to do something else, right? And yeah, it might not work, but we got some good data right now. What we're doing is not working. And I think a lot of times we will just stick with that, even though because we're so scared of the unknown.